Hey everybody, I just wanted to share some of my opinions on the new patch notes that were released for Disc Priest early this morning. I read them as they were released a little bit after, slept on it, and I had another reread through today. I decided I'll just share my thoughts. The first impressions when I saw the patch notes were incredibly positive. I've mentioned in the past my thoughts on this strengths and weaknesses, and one of my biggest peeves of the class was how proc reliant it was, and it was almost immediately addressed, which is great. So I just want to read through these notes really quickly and share my opinions. So here we go. For Disc Priest in Curse of Ulatek, our changes are aimed at reducing Spec's reliance on procs for effective healing, improved sources of consistent damage, and improving hero talent balance, sorry. We felt the spec was too reliant on Shadow Mend and Void Shield procs for effective healing, so we're updating Shadow Mend to be a passive upgrade to Flash Heal and adding a deterministic way to gain access to Void Shield. Additionally, Smite contributes a low amount of damage despite being frequently cast, so we're increasing its damage and updating the talent tree for easier access to greater Smite. So this first bullet point is great. I had said that, the two most important parts of its healing are just proc reliant, and sometimes you could find, if you didn't proc at the right time, your key could be bricked. And then, on the other side, if it did proc, if you just got some god procs, it was extremely easy. So taking away the power from it being procs and more into controlled, deterministic, as they say, ways of getting these buffs is just perfect. It's just brilliant. They are the two most important parts of Disc's core throughput right now, and hopefully going into season two, not having to rely on a proc-based mechanic is going to make the class feel, at least for me, so much better to play. And it wasn't any secret to anyone that had seen any of my videos or watched any of the streams that I just had pure disdain for a healer being a proc-based class. I think procking on some less important things might have been fine, but yeah, procking on the two most important parts of the kits was not fun. So new talent, Grim Deliverance. Shadowmend heals for 30% more and applies atonement for an additional 4 seconds, but its cast time is increased by zero point 0.5 seconds. So, I mean, Shadowmend, already heals for a lot. It applying atonement for an additional 4 seconds is cool, but it's still a 9,000 mana spell. So it's not like you're going to be using it to spread your atonement, but it's for sure going to be nice to put some atonements on. And just bear in mind, my point of view is solely from Mythic Plus. I don't care for how this would perform in Raid, um, and I'm not going to give an opinion on how it may perform in Raid. So I just want to make that clear from the get-go. Shadowman's chance to trigger is no longer based on Shadow Word pain damage and has been redesigned to a passive upgrade. Flash Heal is upgraded to Shadowmend, a stronger heal with a higher mana cost. So I assume if you spec into Shadowmend on the talent tree, you no longer have Flash Heal, you just have Shadowmend, which is kind of nutty when you think about it. It's kind of fucking nuts. Excuse my language, but if that is the case, well, spot healing's not going to be a problem for Disc, I'll tell you that much. Apex talent. Master the Darkness rank 3 has been updated. Mind Blast now upgrades your next power word shield to Void Shield, and Void Shield's chance to trigger from penance has been reduced from 33% to 25%. So, off the bat, I think the nerf to the proc chance in my opinion, just adds one global, which is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. You're still going to be able to proc the shields, which is cool, but ultimately you're going to be able to choose. So your Mind Blast, your base Mind Blast is 25 seconds cooldown. So being able to choose a Mind Blast into Void Shield proc is going to be insane. You're going to be able to line it up with a Wheel and Woe. You might even already have pre-evangelismed, and you're just going to be able to put some huge shields. I imagine with all the extra item level, you're going to be able to have some like 600k plus shields on demand on three people at least. Um, Almost at the drop of a hat, which is great. And it also, we'll talk about it later, is working really well alongside our season two tier set bonus. I've got a separate tab up for that that we'll touch in, but it definitely seems that they've got some more play around because currently our four sets in season one, then again this is for Mythic Plus, is just useless. It's just a non-tier set. And our two set is okay, sure, but it doesn't add any kind of flair. It doesn't really change our approach to how we heal in Mythic Plus. So Apex Talent Master of the Darkness rank 3 has been updated as well on the second line. Void Shield now reflects 15% of the damage taken, but it was 25. Now this is a big nerf. I think first impressions, this is actually a big nerf. However, as we go to read more into the patch notes, we'll see that because we have more power behind our Void Shield, like us being able to choose when to Void Shield is. I think it's going to work out a bit, but you're definitely going to feel the difference in this 10% just nerf off the top. It's a really really big nerf. But then we go straight into the next line, and now we get Master Darkness can accumulate up to 2 charges, which is nuts. Like it's almost like the 10% that you've just lost on some big damage pools. Like you almost get it straight back because you've got 2 on-demand void shields. So that's like it seems pretty cool. Flash healing increased by 25%. So I assume that also translates into Shadow Mend, perhaps, maybe. But if it doesn't, then this would solidify the thought process that you're just getting shadow. If you talent into Shadow Mend, you're replacing Flash Heal. So this must be to make up for some of the lost healing, if that is the case. Smite damage increased by 40%, so currently that adds like 25k, I think, to each smite with the gear that I've got, which is cool. So you're going to have much more smite multipliers, and it's going to work interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how smite takes a play in your core healing next patch. Inescapable torment damage reduced by 30%. Now, when I read this early hours of the morning, I read that as increased, and I was ecstatic. Although 30%, in my opinion, wouldn't have been nearly enough, it still would have been a move in the right direction. Because, not everyone goes through inescapable torments. However, it is actually a damage reduction. Now, I think if they want to keep this change, having inescapable damage reduced by 30%, they got to remove the cap of 5 targets off of it. I don't see why there is a cap. It is just ridiculous for there to be a cap, and now they're reducing the damage. It already does no damage as it is. I think it's like 6,500 per person per thing hit, and you've still got to be able to like snipe a sub 20% trash mob, and yeah, I don't know. I this is the only part of the changes that I don't agree with. I had said that I think if you're choosing to go into Inescapable Torment as a disc priest, as an Oracle disc priest, you need to almost feel rewarded for taking that flare style approach. You're carefully, you might even be holding global cooldowns to snipe a Shadow Word Death to get your Shadow Fiend for Inescapable Torment out. Reducing the damage just feels like it's telling you not to go that way. As well, with all the increase in damage to smite, it definitely feels like they're trying to get you away of having Shadow Fiend, at least for a source of damage, and more just going into talenting on the left hand side of the talent tree. Penance no longer applies Atonement when cast on an ally. Now that's obviously only a recent change that it did apply Atonement in the first place. However, last expansion we would be applying atonement using a renew. Um, so you wouldn't be cleaving people with penance and using it to get atonement. It was just a nice quality of life change that you now got atonement. However, I still play in a similar style to last expansion. And it wasn't like I was deliberately choosing to target someone with a penance to give them atonement. It was just a nice. It was just a nice quality of life thing. So the developer notes are saying we updated penance to apply atonement going into midnight, but felt this has not been playing well as it causes too much friction between casting penance on allies that need healing, allies that need atonement applied, and enemies that you want to deal damage to. So I kind of get where they're coming from. I don't have a strong opinion for or against this change. In my opinion, it's fine. I don't think it's going to change anything. Greater Smite is now a point talent, which is cool. I hope that it gives you the 2 point upgrade for the 1 point talent. So we get. I think it's like 30% increased damage on Smite. But I've never really liked that talent in the first place. I think it doesn't really allow for global weaving. But hey, I also don't play with it, so maybe that feels fine next expansion. Onto hero talents. Oracle, Unfolding Vision has been redesigned. When Powered Shield or Void Shield expires with an absorption remaining, it jumps to a nearby ally instead. Can only happen once per shield. I think that's fine. Um, Occasionally you would have like a 350k plus shield bouncing around, and it'd still be pretty powerful on the second bounce. But I think in combat, there's going to be very rare cases where, at least currently, there's going to be very rare cases where it would bounce so many times that you would notice the difference. I think with the changes to having two Void Shield stacks and the accessibility to getting Void Shield, I think this is probably a very necessary change. So again, I don't have a strong feeling for or against this. I can understand why it's a patch note. Now onto Void Weaver. Void Blast damage increased by 25%, Void Wraith damage increased by 30%, and Void Infusion now increases atonement from Void Blast and Penance by 75% while the Tropic Rift is active, which is an increase from 50%. Um, I've tried Void Weaver once or twice this season, and with all the gear that I've got doing 22s, I'm struggling to heal. Um, I'm struggling to heal 12s with Void Weaver currently, so any increase is good increase, and all these kind of work off each other. I don't know if this is going to make it viable. It might be a fun off spec for your weekly keys, perhaps. Still, I think without having Rapture, um, Void Weaver's just it's not going to be able to provide enough, especially in how the seasons are currently playing out with a lot of rot damage, and how the changes to Void Weaver have been since season one of War Within. I just I I think they really killed that spec. They took away any kind of skill cap from it, and it's now just I don't know. Gone are the glory days. These changes obviously are needed. Are they enough? It doesn't look like it at first glance, but we'd have to try it in person. Now, I'm not going to read Holy Talents because I'm not playing Holy. I'm not playing Shadow. So that's all the priest changes so far. Overall, I'd say 4 out of 5. Great job for going into season 2. It's got me very excited to play Disc Priest next season. Um, I think they've cooked really well. I'd ignore. I noticed some people commenting on some forums saying this isn't how Disc needed to be changed, and those people, quite frankly, are very wrong. In M Plus, this is very much how Disc needed to be changed. Uh, we'll see how the damage works out. I've read a couple of other classes patch notes, and it seems like they're taking damage away from certain other classes that are doing a lot of damage, and we're getting some damage. So hopefully, it sort of like evens out the playing field a little bit. And now it's going to be more of a case of you're picking a healer because you like their either playstyle, not because one healer is mandatory because they do 150k DPS. Anyway, we'll quickly check the set bonus. I think these are quite interesting. So for Discipline Priest 2 set, Penance, Damage, and Healing increased by 20%. It's fine. Casting Penance reduces the cooldown of Mind Blast by 2 seconds. Now that's cool. Now, that's going to work out at something like knocking 10 to 12 seconds off of your Mind Blast, which means that your access to Void Shield is going to be somewhere around the 12, 13, 14 second mark. Obviously more with haste and cooldowns and stuff. So that's cool. That works well with the new redesign of the class. And then 4 set bonus after casting Mind Blast. Your next Power Word Shield or Void Shield absorbs 25% more damage. Now, just a quick read over this. I don't know why it includes the word Power Word Shield because when you cast Mind Blast with at least my understanding of the patch notes, you automatically get Void Shield, so I don't know why it would include the words Powered Shield unless I've just misunderstood some of the patch notes. But either way, casting Mind Blast gives you 25% more on your Void Shield. So you're going to get some insanely big shields next season as this priest. They already do some pretty comfortable shields as it is, but having them on demand and being as big as they're going to be, honestly, Disc, as I'm reading it right now, is going to be insane. If these changes go through as they are right now, uh, first impression without playing it, without having a chance to try it, first impression, if these changes were in the game now in season 1, that would not only propel it past S tier, like it would be absolutely god tier. Like that would be all other healers would have to drop and re-roll like instantly if these changes went through as they're written right now onto live season 1. We'll see how it goes into season 2. Obviously, we're going to be getting more stats. Things are just going to be looking pretty good for Disc next patch, in my opinion. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you are too. And be sure to check out some of the other patch notes as well. I'll leave these in the description below. Thank you very much. I'll see you in season 2.